Hey guys, welcome back to Oliver Smith Watches. I'm George, this is Ryan, and we are still recapping Watches and Wonders 2025. And today we're going to be talking to you about Bremont. Bremont is one of those brands that's kind of gone through a thing lately. Last year, there was a complete rebranding that was shocking to a lot. When I first saw it, and I too was shocked, but I understood it. I looked at Terra Nova and everything they had done, the 916L, the multiple chassis for each brand, or for each style, and I saw a repeatable, sales-driven brand. The prices had come down, but it wasn't really Bremont. For those of you who don't know, about 2013, a good friend of ours named Mike Pearson, hello if you're watching, he was the guy who really introduced Bremont to the U.S. British expat, huge Detroit Tigers fan, just a huge ball of energy. We absolutely love Mike, but he sold us on the brand. With a couple of really quick lines, we were sold. Kind of said, hey, explain Bremont to me. And he goes, we want you to wear our watches the way other brands only advertise. And I love that. I've still been using it to this day. And then even Tested Beyond Endurance was their tag for a long time. And with the Martin Baker, the HMS Victory, the Code Breaker,
P51 Mustang.
P51 Mustang, all these killer watches over the years, they really got this root following that I hadn't seen since the early days of Panaristi.
Yeah.
People who got it bought multiples. We had guys who bought 9, 10 different Bremonts. It was really, really fun. It was a real heyday. And then last year, like I said, things changed. And I don't think it was a bad change. I liked the new watch, but the new watch doesn't necessarily speak to
The guys that fell in love with the brand. Yeah.
So this year, we saw some really, really cool stuff. Ryan, I'm going to get your take on this. You were watching from afar and catered, and I'd love to get your take on what they did at Watches.
Well, the nice thing is I actually got to go to their press photo shoot for the new releases down in Tucson,
That's
which is
great.
really cool at the Pima Air Force Base down there. Got to meet the pilots, talk to them about it. And one of the interesting things that I got from these pilots, one of them was his name's Dustin Aldridge. Really cool, like Instagram. I mean, obviously beyond Instagram, he's a great pilot. But he puts a GoPro in his cockpit and dogfights and does all this crazy stuff. But one thing he said to me was, you know, Bremont was that brand that every pilot shifted to after a certain other aeronautical company that ended up selling and going to somebody else. They kind of treated their pilots a little differently after that. That's what he at least told me. And so Bremont really took care of these guys. Would make squadron watches, give them, you know, big discounts so that way they could put these awesome watches on their wrist. And I'm like, that really kind of hit home for me because I was like, wow, these guys are actually really loving this brand.
They care.
They really care about it, and they're actually using it, you know, in their cockpits, which is great. But the actual line that they came out with this year, they actually brought it back to their roots, which is going to be the Martin Baker line, right? And so I love that line when it first came out, when it was first introduced. And if you don't know, Martin Baker's a flight ejector seater company. They've had like 8,000 ejections and not a single misfire, not a single death, which is pretty good track record.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly. When it comes down to
you want your safety gear to work.
Yes, exactly. And they brought it back this time, but in titanium and on a bracelet. And, you know, they really kind of like dulled down the line. And I mean, like in a good way, like it's more wearable for every day. They don't have crazy colors on the side of the case anymore. They really kind of brought it back to like just the basics, which is actually a good thing for them.
Well, it's like I loved the Martin Baker line. Most of us, that was a lot of our intro to the brand.
Yeah.
Was this really, really hardy beast of a Martin Baker. But that center barrel, the orange, green, gray, was a very, very, the red, the MB1.
Yeah.
Oof. It was a very, very sharp knurling on that. Didn't mind it so much, but as you're wearing it, it would eat your shirt sleeves up.
Yeah, your sleeves.
So that was the first thing I noticed on this new Meteor when they brought it in to show it to us, was everything. And that's what I think he means by dulled down.
Yeah.
No sharp edges anymore.
Correct.
They kind of filed that down. It's still very reminiscent of the original. Yeah, a little thinner too.
Little thinner, obviously a lot lighter.
Titanium,
which is really cool. And they kind of made a nod back to the first ever British plane, which is the Gloucester Meteor. So it's called the MB Meteor. And so it was the first ever plane to actually have a Martin Baker flight ejector seat in it, in, you know, British history, I guess. So, which was kind of a cool nod back to that. So the next thing would be the altitude line. So they made a 39 altitude, simple 300 with the dates, and then they also made an altitude chrono. again, kind of brought it back to the basics. They didn't go too crazy with colors. I think it's like black and like silver for the dial colorways on those. Obviously, great size. I think the one's 42 and the other one's 39. So
well, and you're kind of back to that tip case that we kind of came up with. And I kind of just to wonder aloud. I wonder if they reversed the years. If they should have done this first and kind of had a softer transition into Terra Nova, because it was shocking, man. It was you're looking over a cliff and they just push you.
Oh yeah. Well, I remember the first video we did on Bremont. We got absolutely slaughtered in the comment section. So and then it's funny because as people came in to look at the line, their opinions changed. Yeah. Right. So it was one of those things when they first saw the initial pictures, kind of like us. I mean, it was kind of a hard slap in the face.
A little skeptical.
Yeah. What the heck happened? You didn't even notice the brand when it was there. You're like, what's this new logo? What's this
the font was different.
The font was everything was different. But it was one of those things once people started coming in and actually looking at these pieces, they really, really liked them. The way they fit the wrists, I mean, everything about it. You said you kind of misspoke earlier. 904L.
Oh, they said 916. Yeah, 904. Pardon me.
So 904L. You know, which is very corrosive resistant. You know, if you jump in the ocean, you don't have to rinse it off when you get out. But also with that same triptych technology as well, which is 7 times harder than your normal stainless steel, which is amazing, right? So the fact that they give you Rolex's metal, but for, you know, a quarter of the cost, you know, and a lot stronger too, which is great. So.
Well, and I do find it interesting representing the brand, selling the brand. Every one of the Terra Nova-ish type things, the new Supermarines, all that kind of stuff, almost always went to a new client. It wasn't the Martin Baker guys coming into the fold. It was exploring a kind of a new client. I found that very interesting as well. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it brings more people into the fold, and maybe to have a little bit more diversity in their line isn't a bad thing as long as you're keeping true to this as well. Keep these guys happy, and then you can kind of play around out here. I think might be a good recipe.
And I feel like this year fixed that, right? They brought back, you know, their classic pieces, brought us a couple new ones, including the jump out.
Yeah, I was saying, almost everything was a classic piece, and maybe a return to what we know of Bremont. And then they did this jump hour, which is it's a really weird year.
A lot of people did it.
It was a year.
Did a jump hour.
It was a year of the jump hour. Cartier did a jump hour. Gerald Charles did a jump hour. I mean, heck, what's his name? Nico Leonard came out with a jump hour.
That's right. That's true. Yeah, I forgot about that too.
So yeah, definitely year of the jump hour, which nobody expected. But again, a real departure for what we've seen from the brand before, and not in a bad way. Just giving you something different. The bronze one was very, very interesting to me.
Very, very cool. I mean, obviously, it looks almost exactly like the Cartier, just a little setup different. You know, almost like it looks like a scale. It looked like a food scale to me. But
it was a bolt out of the blue, man. It was something completely different. And I'm almost wondering too if we're not seeing two different influences within the brand right now, because you have Davido who's running the company, and then you have Bill Ackman who's the primary money guy behind it. He was actually Bill was in the booth. He was there at Watches and Wonders. He's setting on meetings, winding watches, getting into it. He's a watch guy in his heart of hearts. So that was really cool. To see the money have a passion for what they're doing. It's not just an investment. It's a personal investment.
Oh yeah,
I absolutely love it. So kudos to Ackman for showing up. But I am almost wondering if we're not seeing two different influences through the brand right now.
Yeah,
and ultimately, we'll see how that all pans out. So stay tuned for more. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. It helps us out. I cannot tell you how much. If you're in Scottsdale, 2 stores. We have the big store, Gainey, and then we've got our guys down at Fashion Square. And if you're fortunate enough to be up in Aspen, please say hi to the gang up there for us. Thanks.
And if you want to check out more Bremonts, make sure to head over to oliversmithjeweler.com.